Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you from planet Eris, I'll be your paladin, Dave Trumbore. Joining me as always, my co-host and helpful space mouse, he's Sean Paul Ellis. How's it going, little space mouse?
Oh, David. I'm doing well. How about yourself, buddy?
Doing really good, man. I'm super excited to talk about this particular series tonight, and I'm even more excited, if you can believe it, to introduce one of our special guests tonight. He is a returning guest to Saturday Morning Cartoons.
Yes!
Woo-hoo! He is freelance writer extraordinaire for sites you may have heard of, like IGN and Collider.com. He's Max Nicholson.
Hello. Thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah,
Welcome back.
We had Max for a Star Wars suite back in the day.
Yeah.
We had our Star Wars month. He brought his brand of expertise to bear on, I think, Star Wars droids and rebels. I think we decided that's what it was.
Yeah, I think so.
Good times.
Good stuff.
We're going to change it up a little bit this week, continuing our revisit to the Voltron series. We're actually going to be talking about the new Voltron series that just came out last weekend on Netflix, Voltron Legendary Defender. I think we're all excited about this one. Sean, what's your first gut reaction to this show?
I was excited from seeing the original promo images, and then after having watched the first 5 episodes so far of the series, I'm in love.
He's in love. You heard it here first. Match made in heaven.
I'm a ship it. I like it that much.
I think this now sets the record for most recent show we've talked about, because I don't think we can talk about anything more recent than a week old, unless we're talking about something that's currently being animated. So, Sean, buddy, you want to give the listeners out there the brief and recent history of Voltron Legendary Defender?
Absolutely. Voltron Legendary Defender is an American animated television series produced by DreamWorks Animation Television and World Events Production, animated by Studio Mir. It is a reboot of the 1984 Voltron series, and its animation is a mix of anime influence for characters and background, and CGI for Voltron action sequences. The series premiered on Netflix June 10th, 2016, and consists of 13 episodes.
There you go.
Excellent.
Yeah, and that 13 episodes we should mention is actually, I think it might actually be 11, because they have the origin story is an hour long, and it's called Rise of Voltron, but it's kind of its own separate thing.
I think it's a triple length episode.
Yeah. It's either double or triple, so the episode count's a little off, but it's a short one. You know, we didn't sit through 26 episodes of it.
So I was a little bit curious when I watched that first episode, because I didn't realize that the time difference was so long that it was that triple episode.
Right.
And when I got to the end, I was sitting there thinking to myself, how many episodes have I actually watched? Yeah. Also, is each episode of this Voltron series an hour?
This is just like an event series. That'd be great.
Do I have 13 hours?
It's Netflix. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, just binge it. It's just one episode that's 6.5 hours long.
I got kind of crazy excited. I was like, oh, they're going to have so much time to do everything that they want within this series. How exciting is this? They finally have given this show an ample amount of time to grow into this universe and do so many cool things. Nope. Okay, it's normally just a 22-minute episode.
It's just a normal thing.
Fair enough.
Just straight up normal cartoon. No, they had a really cool intros episode, which we can talk about too. That'll kind of kick off our discussion here tonight. But to give you folks out there a bit of a synopsis on what the show is actually about, here we go. So for millennia, the evil Galra Empire has plagued the universe by conquering planets and destroying their inhabitants. If you can't tell, these are the bad guys. The only known threat to the Empire's power and plans is a legendary defender of the universe, Voltron, a 100-meter-tall robot warrior comprised of 5 lion mechas. That should be enough to get you excited right there. Now cut to the present, where the Galra Empire's path of conquest and search for Voltron has led them to Earth's solar system. A group of space pilots, Shiro, Keith, Lance, Pidge, and Hunk, discover the Blue Lion and immediately get swept into the Galran War. They meet Princess Allura, become the next paladins, and reunite the 5 lions to form Voltron and combat King Zarkon's nefarious schemes, and ultimately defeat the entire Galra Empire. I love that synopsis just like literally summed up the entire season. They didn't quite get to that point at the end of the first season. Spoiler alert, they didn't. It's not just a one-season wonder, so you don't have to worry about that too much. Let's go around the horn real quick. And Sean, I know your kind of background with Voltron, since we talked about it on last week's episode.
Right.
But Max, what about you coming into this one on scale of 1 to 10? How familiar were you with the traditional shows? How excited were you for this one?
Right. So I was a Voltron newbie actually. I'm a '90s kid, so I was more into Power Rangers growing up. so I didn't get much exposure to Voltron, but I was super excited for this one in particular because I am a huge fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra, and obviously this creative team is working on that, and so I was pretty jazzed about Legendary Defender.
Yeah, I actually definitely wanted to talk to you about like the Power Rangers kind of connection.
Sure.
I think you tweeted something out not too long ago that people were confused as to like which one came first and quote unquote who ripped off who. Yeah.
Right. So I did the season review for IGN actually, and they a bunch of comments were like, "Isn't it crazy how like Power Rangers ripped off Voltron?" And I'm like, It's like Super Sentai came out in 1975, which predates Voltron. Just
exactly.
So you know.
Just so you're aware.
I get a little defensive about my Power Rangers, but no, I am now I'm now a Voltron fan after watching this show. I binged the whole thing in one sitting.
A convert, fantastic.
I am a convert.
Here, this is the most important question I'm going to ask you all night.
Sure.
So in Power Rangers, right, when they all come together to form the Megazord in whatever iteration, all their cockpits kind of come together in one area, right?
Exactly, right. So I was a little thrown off by the fact that I guess like the Voltron ones are like actually still
they're still just hanging out in the fists
which is kind of awesome, honestly. But yeah, so yeah, the Power Rangers, they like all kind of like get sucked up into the head, I guess.
Yeah, I always thought like just from an engineering standpoint, just practicality, I was just like, how the fuck does that work?
Right.
But I love the fact that like all the Voltron pilots are like in the fists or the feet.
Right.
So like Shiro, the leader's just chilling up there. He's totally cool. But these guys are flying, like the G-forces must be like crushing them left and right.
Exactly.
But no, I loved it. I loved how they all had to work together as a team. But yeah, so speaking of, this is a Saturday Morning Cartoons team. Let's tackle this theme song here. It's actually so new that I could not find a rip of just the theme song for this episode. So we kind of binge watched these on Netflix. Netflix has a habit of cutting out the theme song. So did anything jump out at you guys about this theme song, this intro scene? Sean?
I mean, it does a good job in terms of, setting everything up for somebody who might be sort of like Max, might be a newbie and might be kind of getting into the series for the first time. It does a good job with some of those establishing shots and setting a tone. I don't know that it had necessarily the same impact that the trumpets kind of had or the brass section had from the original, right, from the original Voltron, but I don't think that it's fair for me to draw the comparison to the nostalgia of the original Voltron theme song.
Would you say it's fanfare for you? Damn.
Continue.
I'm sorry, I just had to. I'm just derailing you. Go ahead, buddy.
No, it's okay. So, I mean, I obviously the old original Voltron, the musical components of that theme song hold a very special place in my heart, but I could definitely do without the narration that's involved in it. I think that this did a good job of just kind of bringing you into the show, letting you know, and then letting the show itself speak for what was going to happen. I don't want to say that I didn't enjoy it, but I will say again that it didn't feel like there was anything specific that really kind of stood out for me.
Gotcha. Max, how about you, since this is kind of your first introduction to, it literally is like the first introduction to the show as you're watching as a viewing experience. So anything jump out at you?
Yeah, so I did go back and watch a few of the old series after I watched this. So I got a sense of that
so
theme.
sorry.
Right. So yeah, I do love that original theme. It's very like you said, fanfare. But this to me, it kind of struck me as a sort of a like a Blade Runner type kind of like 80s synthy music, which I was a fan of. But yeah, like I can't like hum it or like, it doesn't get stuck in your head or anything. But like
and this new one for me, it just didn't. There wasn't anything that, I guess they kind of carried over some of the same theme, but it didn't really strike me as anything memorable.
But like the footage was cool. It's kind of like a little sizzle reel, kind of get you jazzed about what's coming up, and yeah, I liked it.
I'll tell you what, my favorite part of it was actually the DreamWorks animation logo.
Yes.
Because so like the DreamWorks animation logo by itself is just like a really thin crescent-shaped moon.
Yeah.
Like a hangnail moon, right? And normally there's like a little kid fishing off the end of it, I think.
Right. Yeah.
This one it said like DreamWorks animation at the bottom. It showed a full moon, and then there was just like this arc of like blue laser light that just cut out a giant chunk of the moon, and then it's just fucking Voltron standing behind it with his sword. It just cut the moon basically like in half. I was like, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I think that should be DreamWorks like default now. Is Voltron
amazing.
Cutting the moon up?
It was so good because it made me think like it weirdly made me think. The first question I had was, how the fuck big is Voltron? I mean, he's got the moon and like cut 90% of it. He's clearly not that big, but that's like a fun thing for anybody read Ready Player One?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you guys both read that? I think there's a mention of like the different heights of like, spoiler alert, all the robots and stuff that show up in that one mega scene where it's like, Optimus Prime is big, but then Voltron's like 2-3 times his size.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of argument to be had on the internets about how big these various mechabots are, but for another day.
Got to get that 100-meter tall fighting robot.
Yeah, 100 meter. It's I love that it's the metric system and it's as metric system as you could possibly be.
I think Dave, just sort of with your admiration for the DreamWorks logo, I think that it would be great if maybe for the MGM logo, if we could just get rid of the lion and just have it just be like a roaring right paw of like Keith just kind of
like a red fist lion coming at you. I would love it if Voltron replaced every logo ever.
Yeah.
There's got to be some fan art out there.
No, that would be great because we could. It has so many implications. We can do it for Bad Robot.
Yep. Just a red lion, just peek its head up out of the grass there.
Yeah.
Just run through.
Come smashing out of the Paramount Mountain.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Or you could just lop the top of it off.
Yeah,
exactly.
It can just stomp on that Pixar light.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Totally fine with that. But yeah, so let's talk. Last week we talked about the characters, obviously, as we often do here, and we probably weren't particularly kind to them.
Not at all.
But that being said, this version is based on those same characters. They didn't really, on the face of it, change a whole lot, but they definitely made some important changes. I'll just put it that way. So it's like they have the kernel, the root of those same characters, but they definitely made some, I think, superior, much better changes with this one. So you just want to go down the list? Do you want to start with Keith? Sean?
Yeah. We have Keith.
What's your impression of Keith?
Keith, I love the fact that they played him off as he is in the red suit and thankfully also the red lion.
Yeah.
He's described as being very impulsive, somebody who needs to learn patience. And so anybody who is familiar with color theory understands that red can be a violent or aggressive color. And so it's nice to kind of see them play some of those personality traits directly into the characters.
Just ask a bull. But yeah, Max, what was so you didn't have this kind of baggage that we brought from the other Voltron with us.
Yeah, I came in baggage free.
Which is good, I think, especially for Keith, because Keith is introduced a little further down the line. He's not really introduced with the trio who we get to meet first. So what was your impressions when Keith came in?
Yeah, I liked him a lot. I know Steven Yeun does the voice for him, right? So it's like I think he was kind of the big get for this show, seemingly. I mean, the rest of the voice cast is also awesome, and I'm sure we'll talk about that too. But I thought he was really well done. Like I was glad with that character in particular that they like kind of started him out sort of like the stoic, serious one, which like there was already kind of that with Shiro, right? But like I kind of liked how his rivalry with Lance kind of lightened him up a little bit, sort of had some fun with him.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of cool interactions with each of these characters. One of the great things about it is that all 5 of them and the other characters that will eventually be folded in all have moments where they either kind of pair off with the same people or they're interacting with different teammates at different times. So you really get to see all kinds of sides of their personality.
Yeah, that's great.
And Sean and I had talked about this on the previous episode. When you watch the original Voltron or the Americanized version, the team is fully formed. They're all Garrison soldiers. They're all Garrison recruits.
Galaxy Garrison.
Galaxy Garrison. They're all together. All 5 of them. They come pre-color coded and all that kind of stuff. So they're already together. This time, we actually have a trio that we meet that are in the Galaxy Garrison, and then the other 2 come in later. So, Sean, I'll give you your pick here. Which of the trio would you like to talk about next?
Well, before we jump in, I wanted to ask that one moment where you finally meet Keith,
okay,
and he's back kind of in his shed, and he reveals this kind of like murder board or conspiracy theory board.
He looks like a serial killer.
Did anybody else think to themselves like, oh, please let him be really crazy. Please let him like play the weird conspiracy theorist angle. I want him to be like a Mulder to the rest of the team as a Scully.
Or like,
And
what's that guy from Law and Order? Like Monk? What's his name? From,
yeah, right?
yeah, everything's a conspiracy there.
Oh, I just wanted him to really kind of dig into that. And I haven't really seen much more of it in the last couple episodes, but that was my hope for Keith, was that he would just be really crazy.
See, I like Keith's introduction because we're introduced to these three characters who are just like, they're young, they're teenagers, maybe early 20s at the most, but like teenagers, and they're recruits in a military organization, basically. So they're all kind of regimented. They have a little bit of a rebellious streak, but they don't go too crazy. And then you're introduced to this guy who you've been told by the higher-ups in the command that like he was a great pilot, but he's been fired. He's been kicked out for disciplinary reasons.
Right.
He's like a loose cannon. He flies off the cuff. He's is impatient. You can't control him. So I was just like, oh, I definitely want to meet this guy. And then lo and behold, it's Keith. So I really like the intro for him.
Right.
And how that kind of comes about.
And to answer your question, I loved the introduction of Lance as sort of being this replacement pilot for Keith. So Keith gets kicked out,
right,
and it allows Lance to come in and now be a pilot. And so,
as he was like a cargo pilot before,
exactly,
and now they raise him up to like fighter pilot because they don't have anybody else.
Right. And so they set up this great dynamic where there's a lot of tension between them. And so and Lance again is very much sort of the ladies' man. There's a lot of moments that he has with Princess Allura later on where he is, very interested in her, very cheeky kind of smiles, and that's fun, and that's a great character trait for him to continue to play, that he really does. He thinks he's the best. Like, he thinks that he's great. Like, he's very proud of himself, and I can enjoy that to a certain point. What was interesting was that Dave and I last week had a little bit of a difference of opinion regarding whether or not it's fantastic to have all of your characters that know each other ahead of time, or if it's better to have everybody be strangers. And this show really did the best of both in terms of a hybrid, and that was what was fantastic about it, was that you had these people who had ideas of who other team members were, or they've heard about them through the grapevine, but they didn't technically know one another. They'd never really been formally introduced. And so the dynamic that they end up playing with this is that, again, there's a lot that they can play with in terms of history and past and backstory, but it's nice to kind of have this core group with Lance kind of leading them as their fighter pilot, responsible and kind of bringing them into the fold. And then we have the introduction of Keith, who everybody knows about, and then Shiro as well. And so that just really set up a great group dynamic. That was the one thing I was like, how are they going to put everybody together?
Right.
And when they targeted and went in this direction, I was so unbelievably happy and excited. I almost messaged Dave and just be like, they did the thing that we both wanted.
It was cool that we were just talking
about
it, and it was a great marriage of the two, because you had a trio that came fully formed. You knew they had at least been through school together. You didn't really know how long they knew each other,
right?
But you knew it was a unit that you could kind of count on to be cohesive. And then you could add in these kind of chaos elements over time and then see how that really changed everything up. So that was a great middle ground between everybody's already together over here or nobody knows each other over here. So it was a really great way to do that. Max,
I think that that relationship between Lance and Keith in particular is awesome, because my favorite aspect of that relationship is the fact that Keith doesn't think that there's anything happening between the two of them, but Lance,
he's completely oblivious that Lance even exists. He's like, who
are you again? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which I just love that kind of little twist on their clash.
Yeah, and then over the course of the entire season, which Max and I have watched the full season, right, Max? You said you watched.
Yes,
yeah,
I did.
And Sean's not quite caught up, but I think it suffices to say that Keith and Lance, they have a really cool arc, because it's either Lance is trying to compete with Keith and Keith is just completely oblivious to him, and then they start to actually compete together and they both know it, and then they actually have kind of like a really cool bromance that kind of develops later on, and they end up saving each other.
Yeah,
the
mutual cool respect. I like that kind of development. That's great.
Yeah,
excellent.
So Max, of the three, if you had anything more for Lance, and then of the remaining two, which one would you like to chat about next?
I kind of did want to talk about Pidge a little bit, because I thought was a very interesting take on that character. I assume, I haven't watched all of Voltron, but I assume that that twist maybe not in that show, I assume.
No, this is definitely the first time they've ever done that.
Yeah, so major spoilers to follow here, but I did love the fact that she ended up having this kind of, you get this this image of a guy and a girl, and it looks like one of them is him and then the other is a girl, and then you get this this really awesome reveal at the end of episode 3 with and the way they fed it in too with the relationship with Shiro, like you said, the pairings between characters. It was like
they were
really
a great pair.
I loved that that relationship between the two of them, and the way that they paid that off with him kind of figuring out, like putting 2 and 2 together, like, oh, you're the little sister in that picture. You're not like that kid that I was with was the one that I thought you were.
Because Max,
Yeah, so there's go ahead.
because correct me if I'm wrong, Max, but
Right.
Pidge is holding this photo, and it's of it looks like him, and then it looks like a woman, like a young woman.
It looks like he's standing there with a younger sister or a girlfriend.
Well, they keep referring to
kinda
as a girlfriend.
Yeah, they kind of joke that it's a lady friend, right? But you do, and so like I was thinking, I was like, no, it can't be a girlfriend. I was guessing like sibling, like younger sibling.
Yeah, I thought sister. Yeah.
And I was like, that's got to be it. That's like the obvious like explanation. But then they throw that curveball at you, and you're like, oh, that's crazy. But
and
awesome.
It's cool because they actually have you rarely do you see a cartoon use flashbacks, which was actually pretty cool because there's a couple moments where they actually, for some of these characters' backstories, they actually do a flashback. I think it's important now, and Max will get back to you to talk more about Pidge, but I think it's important to probably talk about the very early opening of the show. So just for context, because it really does explain how these characters are kind of related, it opens on this moon of Pluto called Kerberos, which is a real moon. And it's a team of basically like space explorers and scientists that include, you don't know this up front, but it includes Shiro, and then it includes a father and a son. And then, long story short, these guys all get kidnapped by the Galra Empire. They get kidnapped by one of Zarkon's ships, and they basically are like imprisoned. They're basically slaves, not quite as crazy as Beast King Go Lion with the slaves, but they're enslaved, they're imprisoned, and then they are basically like pit against each other in these gladiatorial games. So, again, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but Shiro does eventually come back to Earth, and that whole thing is like his mystery throughout the entire season, if not the whole series, because there's still some stuff that we don't know really about him. But the important thing here is that when Shiro comes back, there is a tie-in with Pidge, and that leads into what Max was talking about with the reveal. That is basically, Pidge was the younger sister that was left behind when her brother and father went on this exploratory mission with Shiro. It's a little crazy. Watch the first episode, the introductory hour or so, and it'll make more sense. But this reveal doesn't come until a little bit later.
Yeah. Right. I think it's the 3rd episode.
I think so. Yeah, 3rd or 4th. But it's really cool because there's a nice moment between Shiro and Pidge/Katie, because Shiro knows who she is because he's spent time with her brother and father.
Right.
And they obviously talked about her and missing her, and we're worried about her. So she's now looking for them, and this is why she kind of joined the Galaxy Garrison. She probably has the best character arc in the season. That's arguable.
I would agree with that. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I
don't know if I've
think
marinated
that
on it enough yet.
I think that she's given the most motivation. She's given a considerable amount of reason and desire to be there, and there are moments when she's thought to herself, like, I don't need to be involved with this. I'm here for a very specific mission.
Right.
And you sort of see that passion, that drive of what's going to potentially take her away from the Voltron Force.
Right.
And you see her also kind of come back into the fold and realize how important that teamwork actually is. Right. And that's something that, that's been a reoccurring theme. And you see a lot of it in the original Voltron, in the OG American Voltron. And they play around with a lot of those concepts of teamwork. But this is something that just does such a beautiful job of reinforcing, allowing it to breathe. In some of the other ones, in the OG American Voltron, it felt very kind of campy. It kind of felt silly at times. Yeah. And this really kind of paid respect in an actual manner where you felt like, oh, these people are actually, they care about each other.
And they're actually people too.
Right.
They have problems, they have feelings, they have emotions, they have doubts, they have weaknesses and strengths, and
that
really came through. And I think that's really a testament to the strength of the production team from behind Avatar, behind Legend of Korra, because that was those were the strengths from those shows.
I mean,
and you get those arcs that are prevalent in those shows, I feel, which you don't really get with that many cartoons. I feel like actual character arcs that develop over the course of episodes. And again, that kind of feeds into the Netflix model of this show, right? So
definitely.
I love that. I love all the character work in this. I think it's like one of its highlights.
You mean to have strong heroes that are actually vulnerable?
Yeah.
What?
Who knew? Who knew?
Oh my god.
It's great because at the core of it, so here's like high level version of these things. So like there's these 5 Earthlings that all have their own baggage that they carry with them. They're literally thrown into a 10,000 year galactic war where they have to pilot giant robot lions, find this mystical legendary robot, and then form a giant mystical legendary robot, and then use that to defend the entire freaking universe or galaxy or whatever, whatever size. Sometimes defending a starship is hard enough versus a planet versus a galaxy versus the universe, but there's a huge amount of weight and importance and responsibility that's put on these 5 team members, and you really start to feel that as the series goes on. You don't really feel that with the old series. It just seems like an action show where every episode is just like, oh, the lions are going to fight a thing, they're going to fail, they're going to form Voltron, they're going to cut the thing in half. Okay, see you next week. This didn't feel like that at all.
So, Dave, I mean, that formula doesn't sound at all like Power Rangers.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to step back. You two can fight it out.
That's some fighting words. You all just wait until 2017 when the new movie comes out and you'll be eating your words.
I'm just waiting for the Voltron movie to come out, man.
Yeah, true enough.
I really hope Power Rangers does well, and I hope that this series gets another season. I would love to see it.
I think this show definitely needs a second season.
Oh, definitely. Especially the way they ended up.
Right.
But let's lighten it up by talking about the heaviest member of the team here. Let's talk about Hunk. Talk about our buddy Hunk, voiced by Tyler Labine, who was way funnier than I thought he would be, to be honest with you.
Oh, man. Who knew, right?
Yeah. I mean, I knew he was kind of a funny guy, but I thought he could be over the top.
He's great in live action stuff, but as a cartoon character, I thought he really flourished. He had
him and Reese Darby were probably the 2 funniest.
Yes. Reese Darby was hilarious too.
He's amazing. He had me cracking up left and right.
Yeah.
So Hunk is the yellow pilot, and he pilots the yellow line, which is great. He's a big guy. He's huge. He likes eating food all the time, but he has a problem with kind of like an upset stomach when he's flying, so he tends to throw up a lot as well, which was a little kidsy for me in the beginning, but it's funny enough. But he has another side to him too, where he actually is like, he's very thoughtful. He's very loyal to his friends and teammates, and he will put himself in danger, whether he, intentionally or otherwise. He will kind of get in between a threat and his friends. So I really did like Hunk. I liked him as the comic relief. I love how he interacts with Lance, and then later on with a character you meet named Shay. He's got some cool stuff too.
Yeah.
But he's definitely, so the yellow line is one of the legs. So he's literally just like the support of Voltron.
When he
and I love. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, Max, please. I think we're about to say the same thing.
Okay,
say it together.
I loved how his lion was like the one that does like the ramming, like it was a very physical lion,
just headbutts,
right? Which I thought was kind of interesting with his character too.
He's got that extra armor too. He's got like the big heavy armor on him.
Exactly, yeah. The way they actually designed all the lions. Really cool.
Great.
Because they all looked slightly different. They didn't look just like the color wasn't just like the only thing. Like even if they were all the same, like metal color. It
wasn't like 5 Honda Accords in a parking lot that are all just different colors. It was like,
exactly.
One's like tricked out, one's from 1989, one's
exactly, yeah.
I just love the fact that in that moment when they finally do form Voltron, and Hunk becomes that leg, he goes, "I'm a leg,"
yeah, right.
and then
which is followed up in the next episode.
Yeah, they have that callback.
They have the jokes in this seem. Again, like they're not even jokes. They're written as like actual reactions to the situation that's happening. Yeah. And then they do a great job in these moments of calling them back in the next episode when somebody says to them, I think Lance is like, "You said just a couple minutes ago that you were a leg." And like,
so it's literally to I want to touch on this point too. In the original series, they got the 5 lines, they mashed them together, they were Voltron. Done. Problem solved.
Yeah.
In this one, yes, that does happen relatively early on. They have to kind of earn it, but it does happen fairly early on. But then to do it again, they're kind of put through their paces. They really have to train. They have to work together as a team. They even kind of have to do this crazy like mind meld. So they all are like siblings and really invested in each other so that they literally work together as a team. there's a hilarious moment where they're trying to figure out how to physically form Voltron, because they're looking around, they're like, I don't see like a form Voltron or a form giant metal robot lever. So they try just flying together, and they get exhausted after doing that for hours. They try to stack themselves up.
That was so great.
And that is where Hunk is, for whatever reason, just like laying on top, and he's one of the biggest ones. And he's like, well, sometimes I get to be the head. And they're like, you literally just said you were excited to be the leg. And he's like, I say a lot of things.
It's like every time? Like every time I have to be the
like
leg?
every time,
Yeah.
They're like, Shiro's the head. So then it's hysterical because it's just like they are literally just stacked on top of each other, which is what I used to do with the robot lion toys that I had when I was a kid. The ones that didn't form Voltron were just like, I just stacked them together. That's the best I got for now.
I mean,
but no, they have a lot of great physical humor, but it's all earned. There's no real like, there's some easy jokes for kids and stuff, but it's really well written, really well done, and everything comes from an earnest place, which I love.
Exactly, and it's all so character driven as well. Like
Absolutely.
every like you said, every joke, every storyline, it's just all very much like comes from these characters.
Yeah, and there's definitely plot moments in each of these episodes that like trigger something, but it all the reactions, all the reactions themselves,
it's all
come from a character base.
Those character archetypes. Yeah.
John?
One of my favorite moments is that they're in a dire situation. Shiro has just given them a pep talk about how, look, guys, we're a team. We need to do this together. So many other people are counting on us. Are you with me? And it cuts to one of those shots where you see the 4 other pilots, and it's kind of like at an angle across, and it's all of their heads, and it's very close. And they all he's like, are you with me? And they all 4 of them just kind of nod. And then Hunk is at the very end, and he turns to everybody else. He goes, are we all nodding? He goes, I nodded. Did everybody else nod?
Not everybody else nod?
Yeah,
he's kind of like that. He's got like some confidence issues, so he wants to make sure that like he's doing the right thing that everybody else is doing.
But again, like it's such a simple, easy acknowledgement of kind of how a lot of these original cuts and presentation were created for the original Americanized Voltron and even, BKGL. And so to see them kind of use that and then even kind of play around with it, because you think and you wonder if they are in different areas of the Lion when this is happening, they're not next to each other. And if they're just sitting there in this like cut screen, in the split screen, and they're just sort of nodding at each other, they're not actually saying anything. You have no idea. Right. And so it's just a simple acknowledgement of the things that are going on with them that makes this show so rewarding.
But it's also an acknowledgement of the original show's way that they did that, because it's great because it's a double-bladed thing. It pays homage to the original version of that, which was very like dramatic. It's a really cool cutscene to see all 5 of them across the board and like all synced up and together. But it also plays to the reality of just like, oh, we literally can't see each other. So, and then they make a joke about it that is really well earned, and it's just a short little thing, but it's hilarious. And it really makes you think like, okay, the guys that are writing this show definitely know what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can see the love and attention that goes into this. You can tell that like Joaquin Dos Santos and Laura Montgomery are just huge fans of source material, right?
Exactly. Okay, so we've mentioned him a couple of times here, and we definitely talked about sort of his introduction in the Origin episode. But Shiro, Takashi Shiro Shirogane, is actually the leader of the entire team. And he's got this mysterious background that we talked about. He's basically got like a gap of, I don't know how long he's been missing. Do you guys have any idea how long he was aboard the Galran spaceship?
I assumed it was like a year or something, but I don't think it's ever explicitly stated, is it? I
can't remember if they say like how long he's gone, because he like when he goes away, he's got all black hair, he looks kind of normal, and then he comes back, he's got this like shock of white hair.
Right.
He's got the very stereotypical kind of like anime nose bridge.
It's like a scar.
Yeah,
he's got a scar, and that comes from like fighting. So it's supposed to be a nod to be like, oh, this guy's been fighting. And he's also got...
it looks badass.
Oh, it does look badass.
It does.
I want one, but I don't know how you get that. I think you have to take like a sword to the face, and I'm not super...
And it has to be at an exact like horizontal angle.
And it's got to be deep enough to cut it all the way across, but not cut your fucking nose off.
Right.
It's very
like I want
very
one,
specific.
but I don't want to go through the trauma of getting one.
Right. Maybe he just did it himself.
He probably did just to look tough.
He's like, I'm gonna look like, when I get back, I'm gonna look like a badass, you guys.
Yeah. He's like, I'm just gonna bleach the shit out of this front part of my hair.
Right.
I'm gonna cut my own nose, and then I'm gonna chop my arm off and put a metal one on.
Yeah. Because robot arms are superior.
Yeah, especially druid technology robot arms, which we still
Pretty
don't
badass.
100% know what's going on with that.
Yeah.
But it is kind of cool. You find out that like these sort of the magical, mystical creatures of the Galran Empire, known as druids, have done some sort of experimentation on him. So he has this technology that he can do a lot of cool stuff with. He plays kind of a pivotal role in the team when they try to infiltrate the Galran ships and things like that. He kind of is their access point. He can use their technology. He can power up their machines. It's also a pretty badass fighting weapon too. So
I love how.
Yeah.
Sorry, not to step on your toes there, but I love how that's like his weapon too. Like when they're all getting their weapon for the first time, he's like, "I don't need a weapon. I've got this."
Well,
and it's
go ahead and talk about that. Like mention their Bayards, which I thought was a pretty cool thing.
Right, Bayards. Okay, but was that a term coined in this show, or was that what they were called in the original as well?
I don't remember that from the original show, because in the original show, I don't even remember if they had those kinds of weapons. Their lions could like randomly make weapons, and Voltron is famous for forming what's known as the blazing sword.
Right,
But that's just kind of formed by him putting his lion fists together and then just like making the sword out of light.
Which is also awesome.
It's also awesome.
Yeah.
But I love that they paid an homage to it in this one. So each of these paladins, as they're called, so a lion pilot is known as a paladin, gets the suit that matches the lion, and then it also gets a Bayard, which really just looks kind of like a little handle at first, almost like a half a donut. I don't know. It's hard to describe.
You guys played the Mass Effect games? Kind of reminded me of like those little pistols that you get that like
sort
of
exactly.
extend.
It was
you know?
exactly those.
That's like what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that, and then each of them has sort of their own unique weapon that comes out of that. So like Keith gets a sword. Pidge, I think, has. They all have a shield. I think they all have a shield.
Yeah.
Or it can turn into a shield. But they all kind of get their unique weapons. I think Hunk's probably my favorite because it's just this huge like laser Gatling gun.
Right, yeah.
But it's cool because they all have one, and it goes with being a paladin. It's sort of their like on foot weapon. But then you're clued in by Princess Allura, who we'll talk about in a second. When she gives Shiro his suit, she says, "Sorry, but your Bayard was lost with the former paladin."
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, "Oh, okay, totally cool." And it's not mentioned again for a while. So it's interesting the way that they're almost like keys too. They're like special keys for the lions that unlock different powers. When either
that was really cool too.
That was awesome. Like, it was a great. Yeah, these
the fact that they have
too.
multiple purposes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like their own weapon on the ground. It acts as sort of an extra key to unlock special things in the lions, and then it acts an extra super special thing when you actually form Voltron. So Voltron now has access to multiple levels of these cool weapons, which we've only seen like 2 possible ones out of the 4 or 5.
Right.
Which is pretty badass.
It is.
Yeah.
So let's see. Do we want to talk about briefly? I know we're getting a little short on time already because we've just been like waxing poetic about all these characters.
I think it's just it's worth noting that just like so many of these characters are so well done. Yeah. But then we also have these villains, and these villains are exquisitely done too. But I almost feel like you don't get enough screen time with them. Yeah. Like they're there and they're extremely threatening, and you see even how within their own constituency how terrible and violent and awful they are to one another, and so you know that the threat is there, it's looming, it's constant, but they're not always present.
Yeah, and I think Max actually, that was one of his points in his review. So Max, if you want to add on to that.
Sure. Yeah, it's like so as a newcomer to this series, I wasn't really familiar with any of these characters. Wasn't sure if they were like in the original show or if they were new for this. I knew like King Zarkon and Hagar. Is that her name?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that they were from the original show. But it was like I kind of had a hard time just sort of figuring out like what their motivations were, other than just like cool like I crave power type stuff, right?
Right.
Because they did such a wonderful job, fleshing out the other characters and sort of giving them like kind of fleshed out backstories. I was kind of waiting for like the episode or the scene where we're like, oh, King Zarkon has like something else going, or like, oh, this is why like Hagar like joined forces with Zarkon. But you never really get any of those types of moments. You get some cool stuff with Commander Sendak, I think.
Right.
Which was probably my favorite like villain, even like both visually and in terms of the way that they handled his character.
Okay.
I was just I guess I want to see more from them. I really want to see more of all this show, but in particular, definitely. I would like to see more from the villains in like a potential season 2.
Yeah, it's interesting that the villains, when they do show up, they do seem like extraordinarily powerful just on like an individual basis, depending on what they're doing. But then, yeah, they're not quite as fleshed out. We don't know what their real alliances are. We don't know what their background is. We don't know why like Hagar is as powerful as she is. We don't know why Zarkon is as powerful as he is. We know that they've been around for like 10,000 years and they've been pretty badass for a very long time.
Yes.
And we know basically that they're after Voltron because that's the last thing that stands between them and like total universal domination. So that's kind of a typical villain motivation there. But yeah, I would agree with you guys that I'd like to see a little bit more. What I really like is a villain we haven't mentioned. His name is Haxus. And he's kind of like an evil hacker who you don't get to see all that often. And it was pretty cool because he goes up against the team's hacker, which is Pidge. So it's kind of cool how these different heroes and villains do actually get to pair off outside of their lines. And there's a lot of really good conflicts between different heroes, different villains as the series goes on. We definitely need to mention the last two Alteans in existence, guys. It's like the most endangered species out there. So we've got Princess Allura, voiced by Kimberly Brooks, and Corin, right? Do they call him Coran?
I thought it was Coran, right?
Actually,
I heard Coran.
Yeah.
I think they call him that, but Sean
Coran.
and I last week we were just like, I don't know if I can do the Coran, so sometimes I just call him Corin. It just sounds weird to me.
Is it Corin in the original series?
I don't.
It's Coran.
Oh,
I
it
do
is
call
Coran.
him Coran. Yeah,
Yeah.
spelled Coran for everybody else out there if they're wondering why I have such issues with this word. But it's voiced by Rhys Darby, who, like we said earlier, one of the funniest damn people. I love his delivery. He really brings an extra level to this character, but also to the show. Give me your impressions on Allura and then Corin or Coran. Sean?
I think Kimberly Brooks did a phenomenal job with this. Everything that she put in there. One of my favorite interactions is when she hears from the space mice that Pidge is a woman, and she goes to confront Pidge about this and is just so endearing and kind of cute, but also wanting of trust and understanding. She wants Katie to confide in her about everything that's going on. And this is the moment where Pidge is like, I'm leaving the Voltron Force. And she just has such a terrible reaction to everything that's going on in this instance. But it's the moments leading up to her poorly reacting to this, right, and the fact that they would no longer be able to form Voltron and that this threat is now probably going to crush them. She has like these like very cartoony anime moments where she's very like cheeky, like, you know, she's kind of making these like kind of cute kawaii moves, and it's just like, you can tell me anything. Like, you can tell me absolutely anything that you might be keeping secret, that's any possible thing that might be on your mind right now. You can just feel free to share. Just two girls, right? Just dishing.
Yeah.
Like, just dishing it out. Just the two girls. Come on, Katie.
Come on,
Katie.
I know, the space mice told me everything.
Yeah.
The space mice see all.
So I think that she did a great job. I would have never thought that Rhys Darby would have excelled like this in this series. I was a little bit hesitant at first, but oh my God, I was 100% wrong. He is just a comedic breath of fresh air in this whole show.
I'm amazed that he hasn't done more voice work. I think he only has like two other roles,
Right.
Which is crazy.
He really
because he's such a
flourished in
cartoonish character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Dave.
Yeah.
Max.
Yeah.
I've only watched the first 5 episodes of this show, and I know that you have both completed everything.
Right.
Are there any particular highlights, any particular things that I should be aware of as I finish binge watching the rest of this season?
For me personally, when I watched the origin story, I didn't think it was as ambitious. I didn't think it was ambitious enough, and I was definitely proven wrong by the rest of the series. So it really does open up quite a bit more. You visit a couple other planets. You meet a lot of other species that are out there. Some were a little weirder than others. They do some really interesting kind of things with different environments on different planets and how the Voltron team is meant to interact with them. They end up, kind of taking on the position of actual defenders and protectors of the sort of weak and innocent. And you got to remember that these guys are now in a position where they have to defend entire planetary systems and life forms from a force that just wants to wipe out everything. And you find out that It doesn't quite get quite as dark as Beast King Go Lion with the slavery and the cannibalism and all that stuff, but it does get pretty intense, because you find that they're, not to give too much away, but they're basically sapping the entire like life force away from entire planets through a variety of different ways. So it does get pretty serious. I think the last thing I'll say is that this show made me feel like a kid watching Saturday morning cartoons again, which literally like nothing else has done since we've started this show. So saying that, and then watching the really thrilling and rewarding finale that still did have a cliffhanger that kind of left me wanting more, I think definitely stick with this series. You should just feel compelled to just go right from beginning to end. Max, if I left you anything to say, what do you got?
No, I think you summed it up, but I will add also, it's just the serialized nature of the storytelling, I think is so well done in that these episodes, like individually, don't really end. You know, they kind of just go right into the next installment, which is, I think, a positive. So it's really kind of like watching one long movie as opposed to a TV show, I think. And I think I mentioned that in my review as well. But it's so cool to kind of just like sit down, watch the whole thing. It's definitely not a show where you like, you know, turn on an episode and leave it on in the background and, you know, call it quits after one or two. You have to. I think it's really to your benefit to sit down and watch the entire thing. If not in one sitting, a couple sittings. You know, there's some definite breaks. There are a couple episodes that I think have kind of offended in, but more often than not, it seems like it's such a nice layered, overarching story with a bunch of like different subplots, but even those kind of overlap and interweave, and I just think it's so well done. And yeah, like I said, I'm a convert now. I think I love this show. I love the characters. I love the universe. I think it's just aces across the board.
Yeah, and one of the greatest things about it, one of the best strengths, is that, you know, 50 different people could watch it, all have a different favorite character, and all of them could be right, because every single character is so well drawn, both
Absolutely.
literally and as far as the storytelling goes, that you could literally argue for any character being the best for a variety of different reasons. And you rarely find that with shows. You normally
Absolutely.
find a weak point somewhere.
Right.
So yeah, this is good, man. I don't think I can say anything more or anything better. So I think I'm just gonna leave it there. Anything from you guys?
Other than saying this is all available on Netflix right now, and these 13, actually 11 episodes, but it's available. Go check this out. This is brilliantly done. If you are looking for how to create a reboot or how to breathe life back into a franchise that was originally bought by two American jerks
That's
and
on their
had
poster,
no
I think.
dubbing or translation, and they were just like, I don't know, let's just make a show about this lion thing that tried to fight God. Yeah, absolutely, check this out, 100%. You hit the nail on the head, Dave. I'm so excited about this show, and it's been a joy to watch it again.
All right, I think that's going to do it for this round. So let's just go around real quick, and we'll do a round of recommendations. See if I can say round one more time. So Sean, do you recommend Voltron Legendary Defender?
Absolutely. I think you've mentioned this previously. This feels like a far superior series, that it's been excellent to go back and watch this and have this exposure. And I hope that other people who are doing reboots and original works like this can treat source material with this amount of respect and love, as you can see in this new version of Voltron.
Awesome. Max, how about you, buddy?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As a newcomer to this, I would say this is a great entry point. Don't let the fact that you haven't seen the old series scare you off from this. Definitely gives you everything you need to know right off the bat. And and if you're a fan of The Legend of Korra and Avatar: The Last Airbender, I think this is also the follow-up for you. So yeah, definitely recommend.
Yeah, that's going to be 3 definitelys here, because this is it was a surprise. Honestly, I wasn't sure what it was going to be like when it was announced that Netflix was getting into this, and then when it was like, you know, a binge-worthy Netflix series. It could have gone either way. It could have gone real kidsy. It could have just been a bad adaptation, but exceeded my wildest expectations and dreams. So it was really, really good, and it's actually kind of my go-to Voltron series now, which is crazy and possibly sacrilegious to people out there, but come at me, Voltron bros.
Oh,
That's right.
Shots fired.
Well, I want to say thanks to Sean as always, but a special thanks to Mr. Max Nicholson out there for joining us for this Voltron. I'm glad we could expose you to the world of Voltron.
Yes. Thank
in
you
as
so much
safe
for
as
having
way
me,
as
you guys.
possible.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Max.
So, Max, if you want to let the listeners out there know how they can get in contact with you and what you'll be up to over the next couple of weeks, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. So you can find me on Twitter at Max_Nicholson, and you can see me poking around IGN and Collider. If you haven't already seen it, check out my review of Season 1 of Voltron Legendary Defender. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm up to these days.
Awesome. And we will have all that contact information up on our landing page, along with links to Max's reviews and everything else Voltron related as well. So you can look forward to that. Sean, buddy, what are you up to?
As always, I'm going to be on the Twitter and the Instagram at Sean Paul Ellis. I will be performing live improv comedy throughout the entire month of July in Washington, D.C., and you can find out more information witdc.org. And I also am producing a comedy festival that's going to be in November of 2016. You can find out more information about that, and ticket sales will be going live in the next couple months, and that's districtimprov.org.
Very cool. We'll have that contact information up as well. Now, as for me, if you'd like to find out more about what I'm up to, you can head on over to collider.com. I'll be doing news and reviews as per usual over there. You can also check me out on Nerdist, where I'm a freelance science writer for that lovely group of folks. And if you'd like to know more about my short fiction, you can head on over to davetrumbore.com and check out some short stories. If you want to know more about Saturday morning cartoons, you can do so at our website, SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. Remember, that's morning with a U. You can also check us out on Twitter at MorningToons. Check out Sean's handiwork on our Tumblr page, SaturdayMorningCartoons.tumblr.com. You guys have been fantastic on our Facebook page and our YouTube account, so feel free to just keep upvoting and give us your comments and your likes. Let us know what you think about this new show. And as always, you can listen to our free podcast each and every week through iTunes and Stitcher. And if you'd like to suggest a future show and let us know how we're doing, drop us an email, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. That's going to do it for Voltron Legendary Defender. Sean, why don't you let them know what we're going to be talking about next week?
Ooh, we are going to talk about the original source material next week. That is BKGL, Beast King Go Lion.
It's going to get dark.
Ooh, it's going to get real dark.
It really, really is. This isn't for kids.
It's a pretty tragic series.
It's a tragic series. We're going to make Max go watch it now.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Saturday Morning Cartoons. We will see you next time.